Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. It looks like Henry Cavill is coming to the Star Wars universe, so we'll break it all down. He's just jumping from every big franchise to other big franchise. Just saw him in Deadpool and Wolverine as the Cavalry. Sounds like he's also coming back in the Marvel universe. I did a video on that a little while ago, too. There's also the Warhammer series that he's working on, so I'll explain what's going on with all that stuff. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Sounds like Henry Cavill is going to be busy for like the next 10 years. A lot of you might even remember that Henry Cavill has been posting about Star Wars for like the last several years. As far back as 2017, he was posting videos of his dog, Cal, with Star Wars music. Somehow it only feels right that Superman would be a Star Wars nerd, just feels appropriate. Even David Cornsweet in real life, who is the new version of Superman in all the DC movies, is also a huge Star Wars nerd.
When I was younger, I would get Hayden Christensen, which I really liked. Anakin Skywalker, Star Wars.
Okay, right. Took me a minute.
He's kind of a big deal.
But apparently Henry Cavill is up for a role in the new Simon Kinberg Star Wars trilogy, which they're billing is Star Wars Episode 10, 11, and 12, like the future big franchise of the mainline Star Wars movies. I know there's all kinds of jokes about Star Wars not being able to release any movies, but we have the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming out in 2026. They're basically using the Mandalorian part of the timeline to cover what's happening in the movies and on TV for right now, for like the foreseeable future, until they figure out their episode 10, 11, and 12, because it's going to take them a couple years to actually write these movies. I've already done a video about the announcements that they made about episode 10, 11, and 12. That's basically going to be what they're considering a soft reboot for the franchise, where they pick like a new path forward for Star Wars that doesn't have a lot to do with the Skywalker saga. So there's been a lot of argument, a lot of questions behind the scenes about how tied to the Skywalker saga it's going to be, if they're calling it episode 10, 11, and 12. They didn't say who Henry Cavill would be playing. He could play pretty much any character. He would be like the Giga Chad version of a villain if they want to make him a villain in the future of the Star Wars movies. Based on all of his Star Wars posts in the past, it sounds like he'd prefer to be a Jedi character, so I think they'd probably try to use him as one of the actual real big main characters. He wouldn't be like some small one-off character that wore a helmet that you wouldn't see his face the entire time. The only other information we have about the upcoming Star Wars saga movies, 10, 11, and 12, is that they'll take place well after the events of Rise of Skywalker, like many, many years in the future of that. They're mostly meant to introduce a brand new group of characters and follow those characters through that trilogy. So there won't be a ton of characters coming back from the sequel trilogy, maybe like a couple of cameos, but that's about it. How do you fix Star Wars? It seems like it's on fire behind the scenes. Well, you just give it a big, fresh start with completely brand new characters and ideas, with like a couple of the most popular things right now, which include Grogu. When they say it'll mostly be fresh ideas, they're basically saying brand new characters that we haven't seen in Star Wars before, with like maybe a couple returning, which is why I mentioned the Grogu character, just because he's safe up to like 900 years later in the timeline. And you could definitely tell this is like breaking stuff, because as I was making this video, even more new context on what's going on with some of the characters in those movies is dropping. Ryan Reynolds was right to make all those jokes about DC basically treating him poorly as Superman, and they're going to treat him so much better inside the Marvel Universe. That was what the basis of that whole joke was. We'll treat you so much better than those people across the street. It kind of sounds like that's what the Lucasfilm, the Star Wars people are doing with him too. Like, oh, we will treat you so much better than you just got treated at these other big franchises. Like The Witcher is another great example too. Really big bummer to see him quit The Witcher, but likely because he had so much other big stuff waiting in the wings. Like you have all the Star Wars stuff, all the Warhammer stuff, all the stuff in the Marvel Universe. Personally, I think this is great news for Henry Cavill. There's just like so many franchises that want to grab him, it sounds like. You have the Marvel Universe, now you have the Star Wars Universe. Probably the biggest thing that he's been personally hyping up himself the last couple of years is the Warhammer stuff. Mostly because he has a lot more authorship there, like he's a much bigger producer on that, a much bigger part of the creative process. It's been a little while since he's actually released any information about that. He posted some teasers a while ago. I've done a couple videos about that already. But apparently Games Workshop, who owns the copyright on Warhammer, is working with Amazon, and they have a certain amount of time to decide how they're going to deal with things going forward before they basically abandon the project. So it does sound like they're still trying to figure out what that Warhammer universe of TV shows and movies is going to look like. I would say outside of Star Wars, Warhammer is really what Henry Cavill is known as being the biggest fan of. Like if you're looking at Henry Cavill and what he likes to do in his free time, mostly it's crafting and painting his Warhammer miniatures. If you have no idea what's going on, Henry Cavill is a lifelong Warhammer fanboy. That's why in his initial post, he talks about it so specifically, like it's so personal to him. If you've never seen him talk about it in real life or listened to any of his interviews, even when he was still playing Superman in the DC Justice League movies, when he was doing The Witcher, he would talk non-stop about his love of Warhammer. He literally interrupted a Warhammer Netflix promo interview to geek out on Warhammer with Joey Beatty, who is also a huge Warhammer fan in real life.
Henry, let's start with you.
Specifically, which universe or just?
I mean, just anything.
Oh my goodness, here we go.
How long have you
You've got so many and I've got none.
ruling out The Witcher.
Yeah, not The
okay.
Witcher. Okay.
I mean, the easy answer is Warhammer 40,000. That is my jam. I have been into it since I was 10.
What's your army at the moment?
Custodes.
Ah,
Yeah.
I'm going Necrons next year.
Wait,
Necrons.
oh.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Were you
Shall we-
into?
Yes.
Were
Great.
you into this before, or is
Oh
this a new
yeah,
thing?
let's just assume that anything nerdy I've been doing for a good 33
Oh wow,
years.
we could talk for hours.
Yeah. No, so yeah, that's my jam, and that's the stuff I do in my free time.
That's amazing, amazing. I'd love to see your armies. Do you paint them yourself?
I do. Yes.
That's
So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Is it?
That is really, it's
Is
cool
it?
when, yeah, it is cool.
Cool in
I
a
like
certain
painting.
world,
I
yeah.
like painting, there you go. So
It
I
is-
I
it
think
is
I'd really
so
enjoy that.
therapeutic.
I think you'd be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
actually
think I really would.
This is what you need to do in your trailers on the off time during season 3. You paint minis right on the call sheet.
Henry's painting time.
If you didn't realize, Warhammer is mostly viewed as being a hardcore UK thing. Now, obviously, it's international all over the place, but it has a much richer history inside the UK. Recently, Games Workshop just confirmed all the stuff that Henry Cavill had been talking about, and he's continuing to work on those projects. It sounds like legally he wasn't allowed to actually start working on the pen to paper until all these deals were finalized. No surprise that lawyers always ruin all the fun. They released a video of Henry Cavill visiting their studio a while ago, a couple years ago. That was probably when Henry Cavill had started to work with them on their side of things. Yes, I would love to make a Warhammer series and Warhammer movies. Let's make that happen. How do we make that happen? The funny thing about this, you see him geeking out about all these figures, all these setups here. He does this in real life. When you just catch him in his free time, he's just sitting there painting his little Warhammer figures. One of the biggest traditions of the Warhammer fandom is actually model creation. So when he talks about creating his models, that's what he means. Amazon is basically going to let him do whatever he wants. That's kind of their deal. And because he's such a stickler and such a fanboy for accuracy to the Warhammer lore, the Games Workshop people on their side of things love him and will probably let him do whatever he wants to, pretty much. A lot of people now wondering, who's he going to play? Is he going to do an origin story for the Emperor of Mankind? Before he just winds up sitting in the chair, absorbing all that psychic energy from everywhere.
There are a lot of characters from the Warhammer universe that I want to be, but I can only really be one. Because once I'm one, then I can't be others.
5 years, you'd make a very good Greg Horizon, is what I think.
That would be exciting, yes, but then I burn Primarchs and the Captain General. So it is obviously character rich, especially the 40k universe. I suppose I could play a different character from the Warhammer Fantasy universe versus the 40k universe.
All the talk about him coming back in the Marvel universe would not be as the Wolverine, it'd be as a completely different character, but on a more permanent basis than the Wolverine, which was just meant to be a one-off cameo scene. Even though we could see him cameo during Secret Wars, I'm not expecting it, just because so many other big characters that did not appear in Deadpool and Wolverine that they also want to bring back for Secret Wars. Ryan Reynolds did say that the Henry Cavill Wolverine scene was the very first scene that they filmed for the movie. He was amazing on set, and even though Henry Cavill hates smoking in real life, made himself sick smoking a cigar all day during the takes they did to be more comic book accurate, showing what a champ he is. The Giga Chad Wolverine. The meta of his scene also just works so well, because not only has he been working with Marvel to play a permanent new Marvel character, Marvel will actually treat him way better than DC ever did. Literally all they have to do to keep him happy is just not do what DC did. But both of them have been huge parts of the DC universe at different parts in their careers and then summarily got kicked out. It's what brought the two of them together and one of the reasons why Henry Cavill was so quick to sign on to the Deadpool movie. As for the new character he'll be returning as on a permanent basis, there have been a billion fan casts of him as Captain Britain, Hyperion, Mr. Sinister, the Beyonder, even Cyclops in that new X-Men reboot movie that they're working on right now. He'd previously talked about doing Captain Britain in the MCU way back before he found out that he'd been recast as Superman in the DC movies. How ironic that he would then be offered and sign on to play a character. He said being Captain Britain would be loads of fun to do, cool modernized version of that, like the way they modernized Captain America, Steve Rogers' Captain America. There's something fun about that, and I do love being British. When we hear more about what's going on with him in the future of the Marvel Universe, I'll do more videos about that. But everyone, let me know in the comments. Henry Cavill shows up in these new Star Wars trilogy movies, 10, 11, and 12. Who do you want him to play? Jedi character? Evil character? Villain? Like I said, he's a Giga Chad. He could play pretty much any character that he wants. It would probably be great. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. Speaking of X-Men coming to the MCU, Kevin Feige was just talking about that happening during Secret Wars and after Secret Wars. I've already done a couple videos about that. We're also going to get some X-Men stuff during What If Season 3 episodes at the end of the year, so be sure to enable alerts so you don't miss any of that stuff. Everybody click here to learn about Henry Cavill coming back to the Marvel Universe and what's going on with that, and click here for my new Deadpool versus Thanos and a whole bunch more deleted scenes from Deadpool and Wolverine. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.